Hello, welcome all again. In this video, I'm going to show you the properties of the video screen captures that we've already done during the last lectures. And next, I'm going to show you how to use different containers or different encoders when using OBS. And for that, I'm using another software for screen capture called Easy Screencast, so that I can show you all the fields and all the options from OBS. But first, let me show you the properties of the files we've already recorded. So if you go to the output folder here, in my case I've set to my home videos. So these are the two videos from our previous recordings, and as you remember, let me go to OBS actual settings. If you remember the settings that we've used for capturing those two videos, we've used the MP4 container format, and from that MP4 container format we have used HEVC NVENC. As you remember, NVENC means that this HEVC or H.264 makes use of the NVIDIA Graphics Card, and that's what we wanted. And for the audio, we've used the default AAC encoder. So for the capture of our screen using these encoders, here are the two result files. The first one is a lot smaller, and as you see, it's still 6.5 gigabytes. It's not that small because we've selected a good quality. And the other one, it's much greater in length, so it's 10.1 gigabytes. And now let's see the properties of these files. If you just click the right button and click properties, you can see Linux properties for that file. Here at the basic tab, it shows the format or the container used. And as we've said, the MPEG for container has been used, or MP4. This is the size of the actual file. It's not going to be the end size of our final videos because we still gonna edit and eliminate a lot of frames from these recordings. So the size is gonna be diminished after we edit, and also we're gonna encode again a second time, and that will decrease a lot this 6.5 gigabytes that you're seeing here. So, but for now, this is the result file for our first screen capture recorded using the MP4 container. And now let's check. If you go here to the audio and video tab of the properties for this first file, here you have the length of the video, 19 minutes and 51 seconds. You can check that the codec has been the H.265 as we intended to do so, which is the same as HEVC. And in our case, we used the version of HEVC or H.265 from NVIDIA, which also has the name NVENC. So we used the NVENC NVIDIA encoders, and from the list of the possible encoders, we have used the HEVC or H.265. The resolution, as you see here, is 1K. We're gonna later upscale this resolution for 4K when we edit the video, but for now it's 1K, as the screen that we've captured is 1K. In here you have one of the most important aspects of a video or audio, which is the bit rate. So as you can see here, we have a very large bit rate of around 43 megabits per second, which is pretty nice even for 4K resolutions. And that's why the size of the file is so big for now. But we're gonna diminish on the second encoding that we're gonna do at Kdenlive. We're gonna diminish this bit rate a lot, as you see. And also with the reduction on the bit rate, you see a very considerable reduction on the file size. But you gotta be careful with that, because if you diminish too much the bit rate by the quality parameter values, you end up with an awful quality video, and of course we don't want that. We want to get the best video quality we can for the sufficient bitrate and file size that we aim to achieve. So for now, this 43 megabits per second bitrate and this 6.5 gigabytes for the file is pretty much sufficient for our file to be used for a later edition. And later we can test diminishing a lot more this bitrate and file size to what we find appropriate. And lastly, the audio properties. The codec, we've selected the AAC, also from the MP4 container. The channels are stereo. The sample rate we've used is the 48 kilohertz. And lastly, the bit rate for the audio, we achieved the 256 kilobits per second bit rate, which is also pretty nice for audio quality. As you see, you have no direct control over the bit rate of the video or the audio, and that's expected for the modern encoders. You generally should leave the responsibility of managing these bit rates both at the video as at the audio, and you should only worry with the quality parameters that we set. And if you go to OBS again, settings, output, recording, here are the parameters we've set for this container and for this codec, which are basically the rate control VBR HQ and the CQ equals 30 and the QMin 25 and the QMax 35. So it's a moderate value for your constant quality control, and the bit rates that we achieve from using these parameters depends on the parameters, of course, but also it depends on the video type. For example, the video in our case is merely a screen recording and with no much complexity on the frames or on the pictures of the frames. But for example, if you were capturing a screen from a movie or from an external camera in which you would have a video stream of very complex images like nature, like the sun, or like water, you would see that the bit rate mainly for the video would tend to be much greater, and you would have to adapt these parameter values here to balance the greater increase on the bit rate and also on the file size. So the more complex the image is, the greater the bit rate you would have, and the greater the size of the result file would be, and as such you would have to choose an adequate constant quality value here so that you would not end up with a too much big file size or with too much bit rates, even if you don't want to make any streaming but only archive your video stream so that you can play the video naturally in your computer without having any issues. So this is for this first set of configurations that we've done. And now let's just check the second screen capture, for which we've also used the same configurations of the first one. So this is a much bigger video of 1 hour and 7 minutes. And of course the file size is also much bigger, of 10 gigabytes. And you can also see that the container is the MP4 container or QuickTime container. The MP4 is a container derived from the original QuickTime container. And the video dimensions is 1K. The codec is H.265 or HEVC, as with the first video. The frame rate is always the same, 60 frames per second, but as you see here, the bit rate is a little bit different, of only 19 gigabits per second. You can see that the bit rate is generally unforeseeable, because you delegate the responsibility of defining the average bit rate, as here, or the actual bit rate for every frame, to the codec itself. You set the quality parameter values at the encoder configuration, at OBS or at FFmpeg, and the encoder will adjust the bit rate for every frame based on the video complexity. The more complexity the video has, the more bit rate you would have for that frames, and eventually for the whole file. In our case, as I've said, we are just recording the screen, and the complexity of our video is not that much. That's why we have not get to so high bit rates here. This can be over 100 megabits per second, depending on the video you're recording or you're getting from any external source. But in our case, in this second video, we've achieved an average bitrate of 19 megabits per second. And on the audio, we've achieved the bitrate of 255 kilobits per second, which is similarly as nice as the first video, with the sample rate 48 kHz, stereo channels, and the codec MP4 AAC. So if you wanna use different containers or different encoders, you just have to change the output settings. We go to output, we go to the recording tab. In here, you change either the container format and choose any other format you want. And for every container, you have different codecs to choose. For example, here we've used the MP4 container, and for that container, we've chosen from a list of encoders. Here is the complete encoder list for the MP4 container. You may choose whatever encoder you want. For example, the HEVC or H.265, or you could choose H.264, also the NVENC version, in order to use your NVIDIA Graphics Card. Or you could use, for example, libvpx VP9, which is the VP9 encoder from the libvpx library, also available for the MP4 container. And you could also choose any other container, for example, the MOV container from QuickTime, or the Matroska container, or the MKV container, which also has a list of encoders you can choose from. For example, the FLV or Flash Video Encoder, H.264 NVENC, also the libvpx VP9, or any other encoder you preferred. So with this, we finish the first step of our overall process of recording, editing, and rendering our screen video. On the second part of our course, we're gonna show you how to edit the audio and later join the edited audio with the addition of the video in order to render the final output.